It's a great honor to welcome our next speaker, Sidi Shems Friedlander. I don't know if any of you are aware of his great works. I would actually have some of his books in my room, so just to have him here is really exciting for myself. Alhamdulillah, I came last time and we connected with his wife and his daughter. I'm just going to read a little bit of the biography of Sidi Shems. So, Shems Friedlander was born in the heart of New York City. He's not just an award-winning graphic designer, but an accomplished photographer, painter, poet, and author on Rumi and Sufism. For the last 2 decades, he has been teaching graphic communications in the journalism department of the American University in Cairo. After more than 30 years of research into the world of Rumi and the Whirling Dervishes, and having documented much of it already into several well-known books, The Hidden Treasure and When You Hear the Hoofbeats, Think of a Zebra, and he wrote and produced and directed the documentary film Rumi, The Ways of Love. Inshallah, we're going to have a great talk on the legacy and the life of Rumi, so we'll start from there.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, now you know all about me. And you must know me. Rumi once said, do you know that man that lives down the road? He said, oh, yes, he's a farmer. He has 2 cows and 3 chickens and a wife and 4 children. And we feel that we know him, right? So we give a little bio of things past and feel sometimes that we know somebody. But I don't think that's possible from that, since I've spent the last 77 years trying to know myself and haven't found out yet. So I don't think you're going to get to do it in just a few minutes and a short bio. Anyway, welcome to Istanbul, welcome to Konya. I'll do that in advance. And if you leave yourself open, you're going to have a most wonderful experience. Konya right now is a little chilly, a little cooler than here, but very beautiful. It's a good time of year. I know that, how many have been to Konya before? A couple, okay. Well, then you know that renewed experience will be wonderful, and for those who haven't gone there before, it'll really be a great experience to feel the presence of Mevlana and ignore the tourist shops. You know. I mean, you can go in them, but I mean, try to go as early in the morning as possible when they open, because there's not a lot of people there, and it's the middle of the week, so it should be good. And inshallah, you'll have a wonderful time. So this is a talk I've prepared and have given a couple of times in different places. The last time was during the Shab-e Arus, which is called the wedding night of Mevlana, when he passed and met his beloved. And it was given in Amsterdam and very well received, and I felt that it included a lot of information that could be helpful to you. I'm not an advocate of Sufism without Islam. The first thing I'll say to you is that to be a Sufi, in my opinion, I'll clarify that, in my opinion, to be a Sufi means that you have to be a Muslim. You cannot be a Sufi without being a Muslim. We say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, you're a Muslim. Yeah. So I say this, and I always say it out loud and quickly in the beginning of every time I talk or meet with people, because I think it's necessary to establish that point, especially because we're in a world today that would very, very much like to take Islam and the Prophet Muhammad out of Rumi. They would like to extirpate Islam and the Prophet Muhammad from Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi and just make him what they call a poet of love. But Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi was not a poet of physical love. He was a poet of metaphysical love. And that's an important point to remember. And people in the West have mistaken that, and they've misunderstood it. And in that misunderstanding have created a whole kind of poetic expression of Rumi that everybody seems and feels belongs to them. It does not. So I'll give this talk, and I'll be very happy if you like to answer any questions after that. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's 743 years since the passing of the Sufi master Jalaluddin Rumi. The Mevlevis refer to this night as the Shebi Arus, the wedding night of Rumi, the night he went to his beloved. Before departing, Rumi said, "Do not look for me in the grave. Look for me in the hearts of learned men." This talk is titled Neutralizing the Earth's Glue. When I read it to a Sufi friend, he didn't understand the meaning, and another thought it meant gravity. But the Earth's glue is that which keeps us attached and attracted to the world. Mevlana Jalaluddin gives us a remedy for this attachment. For more than 7 centuries, the circle of Rumi's listeners have grasped at the hem of his wisdom. He said, "I am neither from the east nor the west. No boundaries exist in my breast." Jalaluddin Rumi was born in Balkh on the 6th of Rabi al-Awwal, 604 Hijra, corresponding to the 30th of September in the year 1207. His name was Muhammad, called Jalaluddin, and in later years referred to as Hudawandaga, Lord. On occasion, he signed his poetry Khamush, the silent. His disciples knew him as Sir Allah al-Azam, the greatest secret of God. In Turkey, he was called Mevlana. In Persia, Maulana. In the West, he is referred to as Rumi, which is a geographical reference. He was the founder of the Mevlevi order of dervishes that is popularly known in the West as the Whirling Dervishes. Although born in Afghanistan, he spoke Persian, lived his entire life in Turkey, and is the best-selling poet in America today. Why? Because he has become known as the poet of love. It is good that so many people are drawn to Rumi's words, but it should be noted that the roots of Rumi's thought were Islam. He was a Muslim who welcomed those of other religions and paths to his discourses. The love Rumi spoke of was not personal, but metaphysical. The reading notebooks of Thomas Merton, a Trappist monk who lectured and wrote extensively on spirituality, were filled with excerpts of Rumi's writings. Hindu gurus often quote him, for his words have touched the heart of the seeker. There was a time that all the senses of a Muslim could experience Islam through the entire day. The ear could hear the azan, the call to prayer. The eye could see beautiful calligraphies written on the walls of mosques and other buildings, and see the architecture representing man and his creator. At home, the carpets were woven with reminders of Allah. Flowers and delicious foods could be tasted, and meditative experiences and prayer often brought the scent of the Prophet. Beauty was part of one's day, and beauty also reminded one of Allah. Calligraphers who wrote the Bismillah or ayats from the Quran kept the shavings from every reed pen. They would ask their students to burn these wooden shavings to heat the water that would be used to wash their body when they died. The pen was sacred, and there existed an adab, a special spiritual courtesy for the tools one used in writing the name of Allah. Rumi used the events of everyday life, the fragrance of flowers, of fruit, the sound of thunder and snow, to reveal a way for man to wake from his somnambulistic journey through life. He revealed to others how he experienced the world through his senses. Allah said, "I have placed my signs on the horizons," horizons, plural. Anything outside of oneself is part of the horizons. The sea that holds up huge ships, planes that don't fall, birds that die secretly so as not to clutter the planet, the seasons, the apertures in man's body, his face, a cow whose milk does not mix with blood and excrement, water that descends from the sky onto the earth that is then nourished and produces food, and the stars in the sky to guide man on land and sea are but a few of his signs. The purpose of the rain cloud, said Ibn Attallah, a Shazali sheikh who was a contemporary of Rumi, the purpose of the rain cloud is not to give rain. Its purpose is to grow fruit. To every animal, Allah gave a protection. Birds have wings and talons. A snake has poison. The porcupine has stingers. The skunk a scent. The gazelle has speed. The lion power. And to man, he gave the zikr Allah, the remembrance and repetition of his name. Are we not grateful for the gifts of Allah? Sheikh Junaid was asked by his teacher, what is it to be grateful? To be grateful, Junaid said, is not to go against Allah with the gifts that He gave you. Helveti Jarahi Sheikh Muzaffar asked, do you cry when you hear the name of Allah? And if you don't cry, why don't you cry because you don't cry? Rumi said, there is no need for words for the one who can comprehend without words. After all, the heavens and the earth are discourse for one who comprehends it, born as they are from the utterance, be and it is. What need has man for shouting and yelling if he can hear a soft voice? But to bypass words and go directly to the essence of a thing is rare, as indicated by the fact that Rumi left the Divani Shamsi Tabriz, collected poems containing 40,000 lines of verse, the Masnawi, the Mesnevi in Turkish, 25,000 verses in 6 volumes, a collection of his talks, several letters, and 145 documents. The Fihi Mafihi, containing spiritual talks, sohbets, delves into dimensions of Sufi teachings, but is not a continuous work. Rumi's work is a message to save mankind, a forgotten message that the world today could do well to apply. Mevlana casts a light on the understanding of man's responsibilities as a human being who temporarily resides on the earth. The search for knowledge is the responsibility of everyone. A hadith of the Prophet Muhammad states that one should seek knowledge even if it takes you to China. Rumi did not expound theory, but through the understanding of the signs of the horizons, keen observation of everyday life, and Allah's magnitude, one could learn to understand Islam and live according to the laws of the Creator, as taught by the Prophet Muhammad and the true sheikhs. There are both superficial and meaningful aspects of following the Prophet. If one does not eat melons because there is no reference to the Prophet Muhammad having eaten melons, then this is a superficial following. Following the truth and meaning of the Prophet Muhammad is something else. There is a story of the Buddha after he was enlightened. He was walking down a path. His being was effulgent, glowing. He was munawwar. A man was walking toward him, was so taken by this light that he asked, are you a celestial being or a god? No. Well, then you must be a wizard or a magician. No. Are you a man? Again, the answer was no. Then what are you? I am awake. Rumi said, I am a bird of the heavenly garden. I belong not to the earthly sphere. They have made for 2 or 3 days a cage of my body. In 1244, during the fringe of winter, Rumi, the university professor, met a king in a patched robe, Shems of Tabriz. Rumi later wrote, "Once I was in love with books. I towered above other scholars and men of letters. When I met Shamsuddin, the one who handed me the wine of divine love, I became drunk and broke my pens. My ablution was performed in a torrent of tears." Rumi's son, Sultan Velid, talks of Shams. "Shams began to speak, and pearls came from his mouth. He sowed a new love in my heart and soul. He revealed secrets to me about the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad. He taught me to fly without wings. He unveiled my eyes so that I could see night as dawn. He took me to the boundless sea, where I found endless peace. I experienced a feeling of freedom, like a bird no longer caged, and a safety and protection from every manner of danger." Shams's maqalat is important for it places him into the realm of scholars and sheikhs and dispels the former beliefs of some scholars that he was merely a wandering mazub, somebody crazed in the love of Allah. Indeed, Shams was versed in Quran and fiqh, whose every breath revealed his remembrance. He was zikr itself. The greatest Sufi sheikhs of Tehran had trained him, men whose only aim was to know Allah, and they instilled this into the rhythm of his breath. Shams was a selective son who did not shine on everyone. Some of Mevlana's students, including his elder son Alauddin, could have become pallid green from jealousy, fearing that Shams was manipulating and capturing their master and not enlightening him. How little trust they had in Mevlana, how deaf they were to what he had taught them. After some months of jealousy of Rumi's students, Shams disappeared. Rumi changed. Grief bit into him like the ice of winter. On the streets of Konya, he heard the sound of the gold beater's hammer. The sound to Rumi was a repetition of Allah. And he began to whirl in ecstasy as if overtaken by a rhythm of joy. Here began what was later to be known as the Mevlevi Sema, organized and introduced by Sultan Velid after the death of his father. Sometimes Rumi was anxious that time not be wasted, as he indicated in this poem. "My poetry resembles Egyptian bread. When a night passes over it, you cannot eat it anymore. Eat it at this point when it is fresh, before dust settles upon it." When bread is wrapped in a tablecloth, it is the inanimate thing that it is called. But in the human body, it becomes the spirit of life. It becomes transmuted in the body. As with bread, in all things in life, there is the zahir, that which is perceived by our external senses, and the batin, that which is hidden. The zikr can be pronounced by our tongues and heard by our ears. That is the zahir. The batin, the hidden meaning of the zikr, is within each of us. Zikr Allah is not only a bridge to Allah, but also a regulator of the breath. Correct rhythm of the breath gives health and completeness to life. Because of the half-sleep state in which we live, certain doors to perception and understanding remain closed to us, and we wander through the day uttering muffled prayers. Inner work is a struggle. To know oneself is a struggle. Even though his signs surround us on all six sides, to know him is something else. Mevlana reveals how we can open the doors and perceive that which is hidden, the forgotten message. You think Rumi is just talking about love? Metaphysical love embraces the universe. The lover is visible, but the beloved is not visible. To the blind or deaf, the world of sight and hearing is closed. But Rumi said, a man can be blind and deaf in his understanding. If this be the case, then the inner world, the world of the unseen, is closed to that man. One seeks love in all the wrong places and looks for religion where it is not. The batin of religion is with Allah in the world of the unseen. One summer evening in the garden above Konya, Rumi began to speak of the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, to a circle of listeners. The Prophet is not called unlettered because he was unable to write. He was called that because his letters, his knowledge and wisdom were innate, not acquired. Is a person who made inscriptions on the moon unable to write? What is there in the world that such a person does not know when all learn from him? What can partial intellect have that universal intellect has not? The partial intellect is not capable of inventing anything it has not seen before. Remember the story of the raven? When Cain killed Abel and stood not knowing what to do with the body, one raven killed another, dug out the earth, buried the dead raven, and scratched the earth over the body. From this, Cain learned how to make a grave and bury a body. All trades are like this. The possessor of partial intellect needs instruction. Those who have united the partial with the universal intellect and become one are prophets and saints. Allah has said, the human being is my secret, and I am his secret. The secret, says Rumi, is a light from the divine light of God. It is the center of the heart made from the finest matter. It is the sun of Tabriz. It is the self that knows all the secret truths. It is the secret connection between the created one and his creator. That secret does not love nor lean toward anything other than God. In the Mathnawi, Rumi says, the presence of a friend of God is a book, and even more, the book of the Sufi is not written with ink and letters. It is only a heart, white like driven snow. The world is a book whose meaning changes with the understanding of the reader. Whoever is awake to the material world is asleep to the inner spiritual world. His wakefulness is worse than sleep. Rumi says, the one who wants to be awakened is the one who sleeps in the middle of the garden. But for the one who sleeps in prison, to be awakened is only a nuisance. Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi is an ocean. The most I can hope for in this short time is to immerse you for a little while and hope you leave the ocean somewhat different. Rumi said that if you truly bow down in prayer, you cannot rise in your old self. If you place an empty glass in the ocean, what is in the glass is the ocean, yet it is not the ocean. In this double meaning lies the essence of Rumi's poems. The fihi ma fihi, in it is what is in it, are the discourses of Rumi that touched upon deep subjects. These were given in private to a small circle of listeners. They were what the Sufis call sohbets, spiritual conversations. Listen, listen. In each person's spirit will return to his body. In the same way that awareness returns to the body in the morning. At night, everyone goes to sleep. Shoemaker, king, judge, tailor, all the rest. Their thoughts fly away from them, and no thoughts remain for anyone. Morning breaks and gives life to the motes of their bodies. The thought of each one is like a scroll. Flying and running, it returns to each. There are never any mistakes. The tailor's thought returns to the tailor. The lawyer's thought to the lawyer. The ironmonger's thought to the ironmonger. The tyrant's thought to the tyrant. And the just man's thought to the just man. Does anyone go to bed a tailor and wake up a shoemaker? No. For that activity and occupation belong to him. And once again, he occupies himself with it. So you should know that in the next world it is the same. This is not impossible, for it happens in this world. Most of Mevlana's verses were spoken in the last 25 years of his life. He read Quran, prayed and fasted, and sometimes went to the hot springs in the Konya area. The whole of nature, flowers, fruits, animals, birds, vegetables, meat, minerals, the seasons, rain, snow, sun, and ice, all appear in the mystical imagery of Mevlana's verses. He was able to compare the condition of nature with the condition of the human being. Life was the eternal sea of God, where one can drown or swim or walk on water. One could learn to walk above all earthly things. In his notebooks, Merton writes about Rumi and Shems. Having been reborn in Shems, Rumi is now reborn in love. He is beyond Shems and beyond all divisions. Rumi wrote, "I am not Shems of Tabriz. I am pure light. Beware if you see me. Don't tell anyone that you have seen me." We are out of touch, separated from the truths presented by Rumi that were more common in his day and foreign today. How do we reach back and grasp the essence of the past and understand Islam in the contemporary age? We have come to live in the passing phase of peace within a perpetual state of war. To obtain a true picture of Mevlana, it is necessary to separate the myth from the man. Mevlana cannot be only thought of as an independent thinker and sheikh. He was linked to those who preceded him and an inspiration to those who followed him. He lived according to the Quran, referred to himself as dust at the feet of the Prophet Muhammad, was influenced by the poetry and thought of Sanai and Faridin Attar, whose Conference of the Birds was certainly a work Mevlana knew. He was inspired by the animal stories in the Kaliha wa Dimna that was translated into Arabic from its Hindu origin in the 8th century. He referred to the stories as a husk and delved deeper into what was beneath the skin of understanding of the original fables. The 13th century was remarkable for its reawakening and expansion of Islam, primarily through Sufism, creating a wider scope of the Muslim world. As if to balance the brutal Mongol invaders, Sufism grew during the 13th century to the extent that it spread throughout the Muslim world with the replacement of circles of Sufis with actual tariqas that grew substantially in number. Some of these were the Mevleviya, Chistiya, Kubrawiya, Ahmadiyya, and Shazaliya, Sufi orders who drew Muslims from every walk of life, from peasants and farmers to ministers and sultans. Some see Sufism as the heart of Islam and relate it to the human body, where the condition of the heart that is hidden has an effect on the entire body. The organs of the body are not the same, but the different organs make the body one. Different people make one nation. Rumi referred to the Mesnevi as the shop of unity. Mevlana Jalaluddin's teachings from 700 years ago is a cure for today's problems. We are all connected. The rhythm, The beat of every heart is the same. We are the heirs of Jalaluddin Rumi. How will we treat this inheritance? Will we squander it among those who have been deceived by the world? Argue its validity with scholars in classrooms and tea houses? Or will we feed yearning hearts, enhance the intellectual desires of youth, and fill the gap of disappointment of those who have reached maturity and seniority and are still empty? The history of Mevlana can be placed in the history books. But the essence of Mevlana's teaching, his zikr Allah, his meditation on Allah and the virtues of his Prophet, constant remembrance, gratitude, and adherence to the examples of the Prophet Muhammad belong in each and every heart. Muzaffar Effendi is talking. Read the books, and perhaps Allah will reveal to you what is not in the books. Rumi lived in the 13th century, but his message is for all time. Can you make an exegesis of the Mesnevi? To understand the works of Mevlana Jalaluddin is a struggle. It is not a coffee shop where you drink your fill, chat, and exchange stories, then leave. Each verse of the Mesnevi is a teaching and a love letter. How do you read a love letter from Mevlana Jalaluddin? Words and thoughts born in his heart, mingled with his breath, scratched with ink on paper. Who will read this? Will your tears fall to the paper and cause the ink of words to flow into a drink of meaning? Will you first sweep your heart of the dust of the world so there is space for Rumi's love letter to you? Will you sit in a clean, quiet place and open yourself to the Sheikh who sits before you? Inshallah you will. Assalamu alaikum.